Hey there, Coach Patrick here. So, last two episodes of our weekly Coach podcast, I've talked to you a little bit about the like beginning of the season, right? What are the challenges and everything? It's kind of a downer, all these problems people are having at the beginning of the season. What I'm trying to do in those cases is just help you understand the progression required to move from your current state to your desired state. Both today, I want to switch things up. I want to do things a little differently, and instead, I want to focus on how do we move beyond your regular season to a more desired state? How do we go to the end of your year and have some more fun? At the end of the day, training for races, eventually at some point in time, depending on the duration of the race, your competence, the challenges that lie in the, sort of block of training across the time that you go from beginning to end, ends up being challenging, right? And like a all work, no play strategy really doesn't win, right? We can all defer gratification for a while, and endurance athletes actually get pretty good about delayed gratification, right? Like, I'll wait till October to be happy, even though it's February. That seems to work, but over and over, time after time, eventually things wear down. And people will see sort of a shiny red object or something else that they want to do. And one of the ways we can sort of inherently offset that challenge of getting diverted from the broader plan that you're on is making sure that we pick fun opportunities for you to exercise your fitness, do cool stuff, but also keep you on that general trend line of moving forward. Okay. So what I like to think about it is strategizing, end of season fun. Hopefully you're not on the YouTube channel. You don't see me trying to say that. Strategery. That's what I get for making up silly words all the time and then actually having to say them on the podcast. So here's an example. This is a simple, easy one. Like our athletes in the past couple of years, especially during the pandemic, have gotten into the rim to rim to rim run in the Grand Canyon. It's an epic run. It's an incredible undertaking. It's a ton of work, and you can be strategic about which way you want to go in terms of, which rim to which rim and back again, and which one's easier or not at a time of day and time of year and all of that stuff. All of that works into it. So it becomes a really epic ultimate event, but it's a solo event. It's a bucket list item to check off. It's not a race per se. How do you move from a season of racing to be fit enough to be able to accomplish that challenge meaningfully, and then also at the same time capitalize off of that event to move forward into the next year, right? We're trying to optimize this for both fun and outcomes for you, which is, I think, really important. Okay. All right. So the way that we think about this in general is saying, okay, what does it mean for us to be successful? And the first step is to define your big, audacious goal, right? So write it down, put it in a public space, stick it on the wall next to you and say, like, I want to run rim to rim to rim this October, this September, right? Or I want to swim the English Channel, or I want to bike across America, or whatever is epic for you, whatever is crazy for you. Get that out, put it down on paper, say it, state it, like sing it, write it, hang it up, post it, make it public. The public mechanism adds a new layer of accountability to the process of making something possible, right? If you say it, the odds of it happening are significantly higher than if you just have this idea, keep it inside and don't tell anybody about it. And nobody really knows. And so nobody can hold you accountable, right? We don't want that at all. We want to be out there with that public accountability. Use that as a forcing function to get you back on track, regardless of the ups and downs that happen across the course of your season. So let's get that audacious goal out there. That's step one. Step two, identify which of those goals overlaps with your current season. So if your goal is to hike to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, but all season you're training for a marathon swim race, not a lot of overlap, right? If your goal is to, kind of like ride your bike across the country, but this year you're focusing on 5Ks, not a lot of overlap. So we need goals that we have some kind of alignment with. That helps us determine timing. It also helps us set expectations for the course of the year. So by all means, you can go from doing 5Ks all winter long to riding your bike across the country, but there's going to be a transition point there in the time of the year, and we've got to figure out what that looks like. So really do your best, at least at the outset, when you're new to this process of choosing big, audacious goals and then working in your season, pick something that overlaps pretty well with something that you'll be doing. So, most of our athletes inside North Nation are triathletes. So if you're doing a half Ironman, for example, you'll be training for a half marathon, and you'll probably be running somewhere between 15 and 25 miles a week on average, depending on the week and sort of your wellness and so on, your capacity to run. In that case, training for, like a 50K, right? Or a 50 miler is possible. It's an extension of your run training you can capitalize on all the additional aerobic training you're doing along the way without other additional running. It's an easy on-ramp to go from a half to a 50-mile run, for example. I'm not saying the 50-mile run will be easy, but I'm saying we're working a progression. We're putting in the time. We'll have to transition a little bit and focus more on the running and so on. But the idea being that it's aligned in that trajectory and allows you to be successful. Okay. The next piece for us, really, and for me, is kind of the critical part here. Third and final piece is planning that pivot. So when do we turn? Right? When do we say, I want to move from training for this half, Ironman to training for this 50-mile ultra race? Where does that happen, right? Does it happen after the race? Is that too soon to the ultra? Does it happen earlier in the build, which also messes up some of your triathlon training, but has you ready for the ultra? How do you juggle all these different competing priorities? So the first thing that I like to think about is nailing your logistics, right? So identify those major sort of macro resources you need. What do you need? Like, you need running shoes, you need logistics, etc. So map out the trip, plan it out. Can you still do it? Can you do this logistical thing that you've set out to do? You've got this goal, hike Kilimanjaro. Can you get there? Can you afford to get there? Do you want to go there given the current travel climate? Whatever those elements are, can you get out of work? Who knows? Kind of start nailing those things down before you start training and buying stuff and doing stuff, which is fun and exciting. Let's nail down the big pieces and make sure that the blocks actually fit. When that all fits, or they're pretty close to fitting, we can move on to the next part of step 3, which is adjusting your current training to factor in that bigger goal. Let's go back to that 50-mile ultra run for the half Iron athletes. An easy way to think about this is, if I'm going to kind of continue my half Ironman training, but I want to get ready for this longer race, I have a couple options. What are the best ways to do that? One might be to ditch the midweek intensity run, the speed run on Wednesdays, and instead have sort of double long runs, or a medium long run and a long run on the weekends, so that you can still get significant volume in, but do it safely as you build up your progression across the course of the season. That's an easy one. But we start to make those subtle changes. So macro blocks work, then we start making our subtle changes. Then below that, we say, okay, how do we check in on ourselves? I have this goal of doing this 50-miler. I think by 2 months out, I need to be able to run 25 miles in a single run. Am I there yet? Am I not there yet? You can set these targets for yourself. Definitely recommend you talk to your team or your coach or whoever is advising you. And then you assess how you're doing. Did I do that run? Am I at that weekly target for the run? How's my body feeling? Am I healthy? Do I have discomfort? Are there any setbacks? Whatever those challenges you might have already known or identified, or new ones that have come up, where do you stand in relation to them? And what do we need to do to continue you on that trajectory, right? In the case of the 50-mile ultra run, it's possible that you may hit a milestone somewhere along the way where you say, you know what, like, if I have to run more than 20 miles at once, I don't feel good. Like, I'm having problems. This ultra thing, probably maybe not a good idea right now. And so you may take that off the schedule. So we'd have to adjust. And the check-in process allows to make sure that we're staying on top of that as much as possible, right? And then finally, the last piece is to be ready to make that final push. So one of the challenges about an end of season goal is that prior to choosing that end of season goal, you had an end of season. So you're like, hey, I'm going to do this half marathon. Life is good. 2022 is going to be epic. Like, let's do this thing. And then you go ahead and say, oh my goodness, now that I'm moving on to this next phase, I've got to ramp up again. I can't take that much time off. So that end of season goal has to be, inspiring and motivational, and you've got to be ready. So what are those incentives that you're going to put in place that's going to enable you to do it, right? Like, are we going to, have you held yourself accountable? It's not really an incentive, but there's a cost associated with failing on that. But what incentives do you have? Do you give yourself a reward? Do you promise yourself something? Will you, is it buying yourself something? Is it going somewhere? Is it getting to do something? Or is that trip aligned with something else, like getting to see a long lost friend and also doing this 50K trail run or 50-mile trail run? Win, win, win. Then the likelihood of that happening is significantly higher. And you want to be prepared for the challenges that come into that space so we can stay on track and really continue to achieve those goals. So when we think about going beyond the context of your typical season and coming up with some end of season fun, as a recap, the way we want to do that is define that goal, lay it out there, write them down. What are they? 5, 6, 7, 10 goals? Get them all out there. Step 2, identify the ones that closely map to the year that you have already lined up. See if we can find some alignment between the discipline of the event that you're looking to do and the training that you'll be doing over the course of this year, or some synchronicity. Failing that, at least some alignment with your schedule. Then we walk through the process of aligning the logistics to make sure it works for you, figuring out your current training, and we adjust that a little bit, making some check-ins on a month-to-month basis to see if we're on track, and if not, making decisions about that, and then finally being ready for that final push. End of season's goals can turn a boring season into an exciting season. It's a chance for you to have fun with your fitness, and we cannot overestimate the value of that in any way. And it does allow you to carry some fitness into the winter, but in a healthy and sustainable way, and really keeps you energized for the future. I do recommend checking out those end of season goals and keeping them fun. If you've got questions or comments or feedback, hit us on Facebook at facebook.com/Endurance Nation, or visit us at endurancestation.us, where you can use the little chat bot there to talk with me. Be happy to answer your questions, or you can sign up for the team, and I'll talk to you inside our forums. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a fantastic week. I look forward to seeing you next time as well. Be well, be healthy, be safe, and get out there. Do that work. Want to hear about those goals. See ya.